Hello again, good evening to you. Welcome to Business. The size of the country's economy expanded by more than 20% for last year. This was after the Ghana Statistical Service reviewed the methodology used in measuring economic growth for the country. There's more in this report.
According to the Ghana Statistical Service, the rebasing has become critical because of developments in the economy. Therefore, there was the need to ensure that statistical figures reflect developments in the economy. The figures show that since 2013 to last year, the economy expanded on the average by over 20%. In 2017, the rebase figures showed that the economy is still services-led as it accounts for more than 40%. So what were the drivers of this growth in this rebasing? That's the question we pose to Acting Government Statistician Banwadia.
See, when you look at the shares for the various sectors, realize that shares for industry particularly picked up. Shares for agri also came up. And they took from the share of, say, let's assume they took from the share of services. But services continue to be the dominant sector, except that the initial shares that we're reporting had reduced.
But then if you look at in terms of the control of the economy, then is it clear that it's more of industry-led or it's still services-led?
The control of the economy, it is still services-led. But we're seeing an emerging industry sector coming up. And industry is being propelled by oil and gas. Because for oil and gas, we noticed a growth rate of about 80.3% for 2017, which is huge.
Has agri lost out or it is picking up?
Agri, like I mentioned, the shares for agri are picking up. The shares in the overall GDP are picking up from the rebase.
But should the economy have been bigger than what we had expected after this rebasing, what should be the policy response by government? Ebo Duncan is an economist.
If you look at the shares, now it's increasing again. From 2013, look at 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, the share of services is increasing again. You see? And the whole thing is, if the services sector is big, now the tertiary sector, previously, if you look at the transition through, growing from primary to secondary to tertiary, means when you get to the tertiary, it shows that the economy has reached the complete transformation. Unfortunately, for Ghana, it leapfrogged from agri straight to services because the industrial sector went down and companies were divested and then all those things. So the industry sector didn't perform well for that transition from agri to industry to services to happen. So there was just a leap straight away from agri to services. Now that efforts are being put in place to I'm praying that this one, the One Factory issue should, succeed so that the industry sector can be
Looking at these numbers, what do you think should be the policy response as well? Some are saying that it will come at a huge cost. Now the economy is bigger than what we thought. Tax GDP ratio will be low. We have to tax more. You have to grow the economy more so that because aid will also drop as well. What should be the policy response looking at these numbers?
As you rightly said, tax GDP ratio will go down, which means that GRA has to do more. Now, GSS has been able to disaggregate the GDP by informal and then formal. And we all saw that looking at the formal against the informal is still small.
Based on this rebasing, the value of the economy is now worth 256 billion cedis. So if this is shared amongst a population size of 28 million, then everyone will get 8,863 Ghana cedis, respectively.
GCB Bank says it has started approving proposals from some businesses seeking to benefit from its 1 billion cedi business support scheme. The scheme, designed for businesses interested in government's One District, One Factory initiative, has so far received about 280 applications since its inception last year. Head of SME and 1D1F at GCB Bank, George Fuachi, revealed this at an SME forum organized by a not-for-profit organization, Invest in Africa.
Access to finance is a major challenge faced by small and medium-scale enterprises here in Ghana. The forum, organized by Invest in Africa in partnership with GCB Bank, was to help these businesses with financing options they could explore. The participants were taken through requirements needed in order to access funding from financial institutions. Country Director of Invest in Africa, Clarence Nate, explained why the forum was important.
So for us, what is important is that they become aware of the options available, because sometimes it's also about lack of knowledge around these financing options. And so that's what we really aim to do, to provide them with all this knowledge of what's available out there, and then depending on their needs, then they go for it. So, and it's important for me to add that what we're trying to do today as well is not just to look at the supply side of the discussion, when it comes to access to finance, because most of the time that's where the conversation shifts to. It's about the banks, it's about the cost of capital, but it's also equally important to shine the spotlight on the demand side, which is the readiness of these SMEs as well to access the capital. Do they have good record keeping? Do they have solid business plans? Do they have all of these things in place to be able to access the facility?
Meanwhile, Head of SME and 1D1F at GCB Bank, George Fuachi, gave an update on the bank's 1 billion cedi support for businesses interested in government's flagship industrialization policy, One District, One Factory.
The key thing I need to mention is that it is something that started not too long ago in terms of the whole initiative itself. So we've received the applications. Most of these applications are greenfield projects, meaning they are new businesses altogether. So you receive a business plan. There's a lot of engagement with the clients, trying to straighten things to make the projects bankable. As I said, the good thing is that we've seen an uptick in terms of the conversion of these applications into approvals, and that is the good thing, because initially we received quite a number of applications together. We had to go through all these processes. So the direction in terms of the number of applications that we have considered and we are approving has gone up quite significantly, and I think it is going to be much stronger going into the year.
In July this year, Invest in Africa and GCB Bank entered into a year-long agreement to support local businesses.
Meanwhile, some private sector players are advocating a national policy to streamline operations of small and medium-sized enterprises. Project coordinator of Smega Foundation, organizers of this year's SME Ghana Awards, Kwesi Fori Jr., tells Joy Business this would go a long way to support government's efforts at mobilizing taxes from the informal sector.
The contribution of the private sector to the sustainable growth of an economy cannot be underestimated. In both developed and developing economies, small and medium enterprises are considered as an engine for economic growth. These SMEs do not only contribute to the growth of national GDP, but also towards the reduction in unemployment. Speaking at this year's SME Awards in Accra, project coordinator of Smega Foundation, Kwesi Fori Jr. said there is the need for government to provide a clear-cut policy to distinguish which businesses qualify as SMEs.
When we wanted to start the SME Ghana Awards, we had to struggle trying to even identify who the SME is. Then most of the businesses we are approaching told us they're not SME, but it took us 3 years to research into it. And then when we were telling them, they realized that, even when I moved to this area, I'm a micro business. So what is our policy gathering packaging? What is our policy gathering market? What is our policy gathering export? What is our policy for startups, for those that need to scale up? How does the government regulations look at these entities?
He identified cost of finance as another hindrance to the sector's growth.
I believe finance is available, but the rate at which they are getting the financing is another. There are a lot of talks. There are a lot of businesses or banks or institutions that are ready to give facilities to SMEs. But at what cost are they giving those facilities to the businesses? And that's another thing we need to consider. Elsewhere where we have relatively low interest rate. In our case, it's not so.
The SME Award ceremony saw human resources and training entity Learning Organization emerge ultimate winner for 2017. Chief Executive Officer of the organization is Isaac Saki.
First, to get committed, dedicated employees. Employees that would appreciate the challenges companies go through, with new mindset, because at times we expect manna from somewhere, it wouldn't come from anywhere. It has to be through hard work, dedication, commitment.
And that's business on Joy News Prime tonight. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Biafi. Have a good evening.